Greetings, dear student. Again, from the higher teaching centers of Unarius, we come to you, bringing a fresh message of vital and life-giving importance, courage, and purpose to achieve a new and better way of life. In the previous 13-lesson course, many new and important concepts were discussed. Several of these are not generally known to the peoples of the world, even though there is the beginning of a new scientific age which will eventually include and support these concepts. As a truth seeker living in this present time, it is vitally important for your future that you begin to obtain and use such knowledge which will be pertinent to you in your many future lives, lived either here or on some similar Earth planet, or on some higher, more spiritually developed group of planets. For in all manners and ways, such a more highly developed life mandates that you acquire such knowledge, and which is specifically quite scientific in nature. Do not despair at the word scientific, or that the presentation of these various scientific aspects will confound you. If you have the necessary faith, will, perseverance, and dedication, you will eventually achieve such necessary knowledge, which will make life possible for you in the higher, more scientifically advanced spiritual planets. Your course of action in the pursuance of this knowledge will be considerably aided by sleep teaching. While your body is asleep, you will attend classes in these higher worlds, and the results of such teaching, while not always consciously remembered, will immediately manifest in your daily life. One more point in this direction: do not expect to acquire this knowledge overnight, or in any few weeks or months. Many lifetimes may be required before you attain a higher goal. Also in your life between Earth lives, your dedicated purpose will enable you to take advantage of certain great teaching agencies or spiritual universities, where you will attend regular courses similar to co-curricular activities in Earth life colleges and universities. These teaching activities, however, will have some differences, for you will be taught much higher values of life than are presently posed by such earth-world dispensations. The first and most necessary step in your spiritual evolution is to begin to free yourself from the various dogmas, creeds, and common living patterns, as they are not only so currently being expressed, but which have been a part of your life from the beginning of your evolution. And up until this time, you have more or less followed these common patterns and have been subjective to the various dogmas and creeds which are developed in any race or civilization in the direction or connotation of living at that particular time. These various dogmas include most specifically religion and politics, for in these two classifications we find the greatest preponderance of various pressures and human exploitations, which tend to limit the circumference of personal human knowledge and conduct. Collectively speaking, it is most necessary for various aggregates of people, as they are found in communities or nations, to have a certain inspirational and governmental leadership. However, in the common denominators of human frailties, such ethics usually and eventually resolve themselves into strong, dominant exploitations, wherein the masses of people subjectively follow the dictates of these various hierarchies. The Constitution of the United States specifically outlines the wildest circumference of human thought and action, and which presupposes that such thought and action would be constructively intended. Other human frailties, however, have diluted the intent and purpose of this lofty idealism, which necessitated amendments and subsequently a vast and preponderant system of legislative, judicial, and executive forms of laws and personal conduct systems. All these circumscribing and limiting factors must, by necessity, be removed in their dogmatic position from your mind if you wish to attain a higher life and an emancipation from the material worlds. Religion, past or present, are merely systems of exploiting the masses of people, taking advantage of their various fears, inadequacies, and subsequent complexes. Political systems, past and present, always have and still do contain much of the same element of exploitation. Dependency upon either or both systems for the solution of various enigmatical problems, or the dependency of spiritual guidance, always will lead you, just as it always has, back into the miasmic mists of earth life dispensations. Theoretically, and in their purest form, religious and political leadership should consist in their collective and expressive forms of the common aggregates of human ideosophies under which these people would like to live. Unfortunately, such ideal conditions have never been fully achieved, for the indispositions of various human frailties have always entered into such renditions of religion and political systems and made of them highly oppressive and dogmatic systems. The pages of history are filled with complete and conclusive evidence of these facts, and it behooves every truth seeker to free himself from the mental implications of these systems and replace them with intelligent, independent, and constructive thought and action. The future, then, must be reordered. Cease to compare or evaluate any new forthcoming knowledge in comparisons which involve past associations. The future can and does hold for you knowledge and wisdom which is far beyond the scope of present-day understanding, and therefore any comparisons are invalid. Your future, then, will be a constant search for this new knowledge and wisdom and become common additives in the structure of your new life. This is what Jesus meant when he said we should seek the kingdom of heaven within as little children. In the following lessons, these various concepts and additives will be given to you, and which, after your first reading, you will indeed discover there is much to learn beyond the present horizon of human understanding. It would be well to stress at this time a very important preamble. Up until the present time, your past evolution, involving many Earth lifetimes, was a life lived under a system of comparisons. A common reactionary method of life lived by all Earth people. This comparative and reactionary way of life always consisted of various elements which were more or less familiar to you, and in this reactionary process there was always contained certain presuppositions, such as a general inclemency to evaluate all things on the common denominators of mass, time, space, etc. Human equivalents of these materialistic concepts always relegated the earth as the starting place or beginning part to learn proper evaluations. In the future, it will mean a complete reversal of this materialistic philosophy and a gradual realization that the beginning is infinite and of such vast proportions as to be entirely inconceivable by the human mind, and that in the common finite expression of this infinite, the earth and all its aggregates present only a number of terminating points of this infinite creative consciousness. When this concept is fully evaluated, you will cast aside all previous systems which involved deifications such as God or gods, and in their place you will realize that this infinite creative intelligence is not some emotional white-robed Santa Claus who, in some mysterious way, seems to know what is going on in the hearts and minds of countless billions of people. In view of the uncounted billions of worlds and planetary systems, and their uncounted billions of people, such assumptions are ridiculous and must be replaced with a more comprehensive knowledge of function of the great creative intelligence, which is the sum and total of all things, visible and invisible, and which, through well-organized and directed principles, manifests and recreates itself infinitely. It must also be thoroughly understood that as this infinite is all things, you are then a small part of this infinite, and as such, you are directly related in thought and action to this infinite intelligence. That every thought and action has vast and intricate implications which always result from any of your thoughts or actions as part of the functioning of these principles. Needless to say, when any person understands the full implications which are involved in this concept, this person would immediately, if he were wise, attempt to cease any destructive or coercive thought action. In the full meaning and understanding of the creative principle by which everyone functions, you will then see how it is that individually or collectively we are all making our own future by our thoughts and actions of today. How this comes about will be scientifically discussed in the following lessons, and which will leave you no alternative but to learn and understand these principles and their functions, as well as to make the active denominators of your own future life. For in the learning of these new and advanced principles, and in their gradual usage, you will begin to replace the old dogmatic systems of the past. You will pay less heed to the rhetorical minds who demand that you remain with them in their pits of clay, and you must not look back, lest your purpose and resolutions be turned to salt, which will make your future barren and sterile. Both the scientist and science, in their present position, find themselves in the most enigmatical situation in which any group of people have ever found themselves. For while the scientist has established a workable physical science and an accompanying very high development of technocracy to justify this science, yet he cannot explain the source of his science. He has been able to harness and use various types of physical energies for his daily use. He has learned something of the microscopic world. He has even learned something of the atom and its tremendous power. Yet he does not know the source or origin of even the smallest part of this vast material cosmos which is everywhere about him. referring to those whom we might call religionists, and who relate all such origins into the dimension of mystical or invisible forces. These people have fared no better. Perhaps in one sense their position is worsened by clinging to beliefs which are basically pagan in nature. To the scientist, therefore, who has taken the first step and is at least in a better position to rationalize, may we point out that the answer is very simple, and when once you men of science have grasped its meaning and significance, your faces will turn even more red than they were before because of not knowing the answers to your enigma. The answer is simply this. Like a person who is to embark upon an aerial journey to some unknown planet, you must be willing to leave behind some of the seemingly solid but age-old concepts which you have built up around you. Your mathematics have been built upon concepts postulated by Euclid 2,000 years ago, and Euclid, like Galen, who lived after the time of Euclid, founded a theory of anatomy which lived for 1,500 years, even though Galen did not know that blood in the body circulated. Neither did Euclid know the basic underlying principles behind all things. For your stepping off place, let us begin with the atom, and that all present-day knowledge and findings about atoms have led the scientist deeper into the enigmatic maze into which he has trapped himself. Recent findings by an eminent physicist, the father of the hydrogen bomb, who resides in his cubicle at Berkeley, California, has so expressed himself publicly, and these findings have made it very clear that science knows little or nothing about the atoms, and that there must be an entirely new or re-evaluation of atomic structures. This has been vastly accelerated different scientific centers into building various new types of cyclotrons, whereby the scientist hopes to gain this new knowledge. This vast expenditure of money and time is quite unnecessary and becomes quite asinine in view of the fact that all that is necessary to know what an atom is to gain the knowledge of its source, and that an atom is producing in direct facsimile, like a motion picture or a television set, a picture of something which is happening in various dimensions, adjunctive to the material world.